Okay, greetings everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Robert, I will get a hold of you after I get done here. I'll give you a quick call or something. In the meantime, my apologies for being late. And I hope that doesn't deter you from hitting that like, share, and subscribe button. If you're on Hecklebus, Keith Little, or El Perro, go ahead and get over to one of the other channels and hit that button as well. Help the algorithms. There's a like button, or excuse me, a PayPal buttons down in the details sections for anybody that wants to share some love. And the StreamYard link is down there for anybody that wants to join the panel. Tonight, I'm going to do some more reading in part 7 that we left off in yesterday. And though we're not in a war here, we're certainly not executing people. We're certainly not doing many of the things that they did in Nazi Germany and various other times. But we are following that same pattern. We are being indoctrinated through our own education system and purporting that it's a good education system somehow. Excuse me. Somehow the world seems to think that America is such a great nation because of its education. And I pose that probably not so great. Probably one of the main problems of why we are the way we are today. And so with that, I'm going to start reading here. And this is basically going to give you a kind of idea that these people knew what they were doing. There's no way that they couldn't have known what they were doing. Excuse me. They knew it was wrong, but they did it anyway. And again, these are supposedly Christian people that believed in God and the light that he brought. And I find it disturbing that today we're still willing to do things in that same pattern. And we end up with statistics like death rates or various things. And we like to name those death rates. We like to give them titles. What kind of death was it? We see in the pandemic, it was COVID. A lot of things were marked down as COVID, COVID, COVID. And again, I pose it idiocy, ignorance. Many of them are because of idiocy and ignorance. So with that, it says from the market square, the Germans struck the Jews one at a time, or one group at a time. I don't know what the deal is here, guys. But it says one group at a time to the woods on the outskirts of Josephow, whereupon the Jews were ordered by the policemen to escort to jump down from the trucks, and were naturally, as circumstances warranted, given a, quote, helping hand. If you know what that means, of course. To speed things up, even though this was their first killing operation, it was already, according to this killer, natural for the men of the police battalion 101 to strike Jews. So natural was it that the killer mentions it in an offhand, passing manner, not deeming it worthy of any further attention or elaboration, because what they were in fact doing as a result was a much greater effect. So hitting them with a little whip was nothing compared to the true effect. The men of First Company, who were initially assigned to shoot the Jews, were joined around noon by members of Second Company because Major Trapp anticipated that it would not otherwise finish the slaughter before nightfall. So they put things on a timeline and had to enforce that timeline by bringing in more people to do it. This is involving more people with the killing and execution directly rather than a system of chain duties. Now they're bringing people in from other duties or other battalions to do the killing. So it's becoming more expansive upon their troops as their demands for killing become more. And they just willingly do it. The actual killing duties ended up being shared by more of the battalion than Trapp had originally planned. The exact manner of transport and the procedure of execution differed a bit from unit to unit and also evolved during the course of the day. Platoons of First Company, to focus on it, had broken down into killing squads of about 8. The initial procedure was some variation on the following. A squad would approach the group of Jews who had just arrived, from which each member would choose his victim, man, woman, or child. The Jews and German would then walk in parallel, single file, so that each killer moved in step with his victim until they reached a clearing for the killing, where they would position themselves and await the firing order from their squad leader. The walk into the woods afforded each perpetrator an opportunity for reflection. Walking side by side with his victim, he was able to imbue the human form beside him with the projection of his mind. So some of the Germans, of course, had children walking beside them. It is highly likely that back in Germany, these men had previously walked through woods with their own children by their sides, marching gaily and inquisitively along. With what thoughts and emotions did each of these men march, gazing sidelong at the form of, say, an 8 or 12-year-old girl, who to the unideologized mind would have looked like any other girl? In these moments, each killer had personalized face-to-face relationship to his victim, to his little girl. Or did he see a little girl and ask himself why he was about to kill this little delicate human being? If seeing it as a little girl by him, would normally have received his compassion, protection, and nurturance? Or did he see a Jew, a young one, but a Jew nonetheless? See, that goes to the part, do you see the one next to you? Do you see him as an American? Do you see him as a neighbor? Do you see him as a politician, a judge, a lawyer, a Democrat, any of these ad hominems? Do you see him anything other than a child of God? Why would you treat them differently than a child of God because you want to tag them as this or that? It's part of the indoctrination. Did he wonder incredulously what could possibly justify his blowing a vulnerable little girl's brains out? Or did he understand the reasonableness of the order, the necessity of nipping the believed-in Jewish blight in the bud? The Jew child, after all, was mother to the Jew. The killing itself was a gruesome affair. After the walk through the woods, each of the Germans had to raise his gun to the back of the head, now face down on the ground, that had bobbed along beside him, pull the trigger, and watch the person, sometimes a little girl, twitch and then move no more. The Germans had to remain hardened to the crying of the victims, to the crying of women, to the whimpering of children. At such close range, the Germans often became spattered with human gore. In the words of one man, the supplementary shot struck the skull with such force that the entire back of the skull was torn off, and blood, bones, splinters, and brain matter soiled the marksman. Sergeant Anton Bentheim indicates that this was not an isolated episode, but rather the general condition. The executioners were gruesomely soiled with blood, brain matter, and bone splinters. It stuck to their clothes. Although this is obviously viscerally unsettling, capable of disturbing even the most hardened of executioners, these German initiates returned to fetch new victims, new little girls, and to begin the journey back into the woods. They sought unstained locations in the wood for each new batch of Jews. In this personalized, individual manner, each of the men who partook in the shooting generally killed between 5 and 10 Jews, most of whom were elderly, women, and children. The approximately 30 men of Lieutenant Kurt Drucker's platoon of 2nd Company, for example, shot between 200 and 300 Jews in 3 to 4 hours. They took breaks during the killing for rest, for relief, and for smoking cigarettes. The uncharacteristically for German killing operations, the men of Police Battalion 101 neither forced the Jews to undress nor collect valuables from them. They had one single-minded mission that day. In total, between the wild slaughter in the ghetto itself and the methodical executions in the woods, the Germans killed that day somewhere over 1,200 Jews, perhaps a few hundred more. The Germans abandoned the bodies where they lay, whether in the streets of Josephau or in the surrounding woods, having left the burial of Josephau's Polish mayor to arrange. Among the victims was a considerable number of German Jews from the northern part of Germany who spoke German in an accent similar to that of the men of Police Battalion 101. The linguistic strangeness of Polish Jews, who were the majority of the victims, and their alien Polish-Jewish customs served to buttress the monumental cognitive and psychological barrier that effectively prevented the Germans from recognizing the Jews' humanity. However, much the Germans could disassociate the Polish Jews from themselves, the Jews from their own region of Germany who addressed the killers in the cadence of their mother's tongue might nevertheless have shocked the Germans into considering the humanity of these Jews. 2 members of 2nd Company remember a Jew from Bremen who was a veteran of the First World War, having begged for his life to be spared. It did the Jew no good, just as the rest of the German Jews. Germanists yielded them nothing but the Germans' egalitarian bullets, which in the Germans' eyes, in the reality, leveled all Jews, German or Polish, male or female, young or old. What was the effect of killing on the killers? Their assiduousness in killing is not to be doubted. They applied themselves diligently to their task with telling effect. The gruesome of it revolted some, but not all. One killer described a vivid memory from that day. The Jews were brought into the woods on the instruction of Sergeant Steinmetz. We went with the Jews. After about 220 yards, Steinmetz directed that the Jews had to lay themselves next to each other in a row on the ground. I would like to mention now that only women and children were there. They were largely women and children around 12 years old. I had to shoot an old woman who was over 60 years old. I can still remember that the old woman said to me, "Will you make it short or about the same?" Next to me was Policeman Cook, who had to shoot a small boy of perhaps 12 years. He had been expressly told that we should hold the gun's barrel 8 inches from the head. Cook had apparently not done this because while leaving the execution site, the other comrades laughed at me because pieces of the child's brains had spattered onto my sidearm and had stuck there. I first asked, "Why are you laughing?" Whereupon Cook pointed to the brains on my sidearm and said, "That's from mine." He had stopped twitching. He said this in obviously boastful tone. So they went from, or some had a degree of repulsiveness, others had a degree of enjoyment, and were able to have the candor to make jokes about it. It's disturbing that people do that same kind of thing today. There's a video recently where a police officer was found to be laughing about her partner hitting and running over a pedestrian and killing him, and then discussing about their worth. They weren't as much as somebody else. This is the mentality that people hold still to this day. It's disturbing. I urge you people to start waking up and looking around and see what's going on. Learn how to put a stop to it in your life by stopping yourself from being the one that does it. I want to take a minute to remind everybody, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And I want to thank everybody for joining me, of course. Justin Harris, 2MW, Luscious McGoldrick, Jen, always good to see you. Robert, if you're still here. And Luscious says the education system in the modern era is set up to foster ignorance and diversion from reality. Many people now exist in a virtual or fictional world, not living their own life on Earth. Exactly. It's a big popularity contest. People are trying out for their 15 minutes of fame, and they take that chance and opportunity anytime they can. And it's important to realize that popularity contest is about the ego and not about the good works that you're doing by your hands, but the popularity of the title that you placate out to the people through those actions. And therefore, it doesn't matter the name of the man, but their actions. And if you're going to go by that title and placate that your actions are so good in this popularity contest, I suggest you think again. Of course, you might be able to profit from that popularity contest. There's a lot of people that do. But at the end of the road, what are you going to do with it all? Is it going to help you buy back all your sins, your sinful nature? I don't think so. I don't think God cares about that which he created as gold and silver, and that nice house you got and that car that you got, and the fact that you're going to leave it to your son or your daughter or anything. I don't think he really cares about that. I don't think you really understand that. I don't think that you read the story of Job. So let's continue on. This kind of jocularity, this kind of boyish open joy being taken in the mass slaughter was not a singular occurrence, never to be repeated. After describing the mocker's tone as boastful, the killer's remarks, "I have experienced more obscenities of this kind." In other words, they became used to it. And they learned to get used to it real quick. Think about that, 1,200 in one day. The ghastliness of the killing scene did disturb some of the killers. Of this, there can be no doubt. Some were shaken badly. Entering an ordinary animal slaughterhouse is unpleasant for many, even for some avid meat eaters. Not surprisingly, a few of the killers felt the need to excuse themselves from the killing or to take a breather during its course. One squad leader, Sergeant Ernst Hergert, reports that within his platoon, 2 to 5 men asked to be exempted from the killing after these men had already begun because they found it too burdensome to shoot women and children. The men were excused by him or by their lieutenant and given either guard or transport duties for the duration of the killing. 2 other sergeants, Bentheim and Arthur Kammer, also excused a few men under their commands. A 3rd sergeant, Heinrich Steinmetz, explicitly told his men before the killings that they did not have to kill. I would like also to mention that before the beginning of the execution, Sergeant Steinmetz said to the members of the platoon that those who did not feel up to the upcoming task could come forward. No one, to be sure, exempted himself. Significantly, these men had already participated in the brutal ghetto clearing, so by the time of his offer, they had had the opportunity to confront the gruesome reality of the genocidal enterprise, and yet they didn't come forward and back out. Yet, not even one of them took up to the ready offer to avoid further killing at the time. According to one of his men, Steinmetz repeated the offer after the killing had gotten underway. This man admitted to having killed 6 or 8 Jews before asking the sergeant to excuse him. His request was granted. Sergeant Steinmetz was not a superior who was unfeeling towards his men. Particularly noteworthy refusal to kill was that of one of the battalion's officers, Lieutenant Heinz Buchmann. Beginning with the killing in Josephau and subsequent killings, he avoided participating directly in the executions, having managed to get himself assigned other duties. At Josephau, he led the escort of the so-called able-bodied Jews to a work camp near Lublin. Everyone in the battalion knew that this lieutenant avoided killing duty. His wish not to participate in the killings was so accepted in the hierarchy of command that his company commander circumvented him when killing operations were at hand and gave orders directly to the lieutenant's subordinates. In other words, he didn't pass the directives on to him to give the directive to kill. He left him out of that decision totally and just went around him. Greetings, graphics. Yes, I am doing well. Thank you for asking. And we are on page 220 if you've got the book, Rachella. 220, last paragraph. Obviously, at least some of the men felt no hesitation to ask out. The fact was that they easily got themselves excused from the killing, and that others saw that extricating themselves from the gruesome task was possible. Trapp's offer had been made before the entire battalion. At least one sergeant in charge of a contingent of executioners explicitly made the same offer to his men, and the lieutenant and sergeant running another squad easily acceded to requests by men that they be excused. Offers and opportunities for removal from direct killing were accepted, both in front of the assembled battalion and in the intimacy of the platoons and squads. Even one reluctant officer served as an example to the battalion's rank and file that extricating oneself from the gruesome killing was possible and not dishonorable. Up and down Police Battalion 101's hierarchy, there is what appears to have been a partly formal and partly informal understanding that men who did not want to kill should not be forced to do so. That mere sergeants and not only the battalion commander were exercising discretion to excuse men from killing demonstrates how accepted the men's opting out was. It also makes unequivocal that those who slaughtered Jews, including Jewish children, did so voluntarily. And just because you opted out of the killing of the Jews directly doesn't mean you didn't still volunteer for some other part of the mechanism, one of the other cogs in the wheel of doing so. They still played a part in it. And that's what we're doing today in this society of fiat command, where you're taking part in a system that's allowing you to be abused because you don't know what you're actually doing when you do. You know your children grow up stupid because you sent them to a public school. You believe yourself to be intelligent, but you know you're not quite as intelligent as some other people because you yourself went to public school. It takes a long time to realize in a system like this what's going on. I understand that. I was 50 years old before I realized, wait a minute, the things that I thought were wrong aren't quite what I thought was wrong, and it's a lot more serious than I thought. My own mother in her 70s and my dad in his 70s believe that the police are their authority. Or they placate that the police are my authority and they have some other authority. How that works, I don't know. But let them talk about me. I'd rather have them talk about me and that crazy shit than talk about Jesus and slander and blasphemy Jesus. So fuck them. See, this thing about Monograph is just ridiculous. He's out for a popularity name. I'm not out for that. So he can do what he wants to do. It's not going to affect me. These are the things. I mean, it's good that he knows me. Put it that way. Because I'm a good character, I think. And maybe someday he might look around and see something different. And maybe I'm the one that helps bring that about. But again, it's not about me. It's about the message. So, I really don't care about him. I really don't care about their chat. I really don't care about their concept of doxing. If he thinks he can dox me, dox me. What's going to happen? Are the police going to come to my door? Is somebody that hates me so much that they want to kill me going to come to my door? I mean, what's that going to do? Is that going to destroy the message, or is it only going to destroy me? Because, see, once you knock me down, there's still other people out there spreading the same message. And it doesn't matter if you kill all the people on the earth or not. The word's still going to stand. The life is still going to stand. Yeah. Yeah, expose. Expose all you want. What are you going to expose? You're going to expose 93 cases? Tommy's an idiot too. It's one of those things that, like I said earlier, the popularity contest is the sickness. Everybody, I don't give a rat's ass. I got 10 viewers right now. You think I really care about having thousands of viewers? No. What I care about is that the people that are viewing are getting the message, and that when you get this message, that maybe you find a better way of expressing it, because I'm terrible at it. I really am. I'm terrible at expressing this message. I understand that. I've got the message. I know what I'm doing. I know who I am. I know what I'm doing, what my task is. And the problem is, the way we work today in this public education system and the language we've been indoctrinated into has got us so far away from the true message that I don't know how to express it any simpler than the scripture does. And yet everybody wants to keep writing a book expressing the message in their own view. I think the scriptures are the best message, the best way to view it. I think anything above and beyond that in our own lives is just part of that popularity shit. Everybody wants to keep up with the Joneses. Everybody wants to be equal. Everybody wants to get rid of the wars and the secrets like Jack. You know, you can't do that. It's part of the diversity. It's going to happen. It's part of life. It's part of the balance. And the problem with trying to get rid of it is that if you end up, if you were to try to get rid of that and think that there's some kind of utopia, then what's the meaning of life? See, truly, we're here to teach. And if we learn it all, then what's there left to teach? And the teaching comes from the differences, from the downfalls, from the pitfalls, from the times we fall and make mistakes. It's the riding the bike. You're never going to start out learning how to do something and be perfect at it the first time. You have to be able to make mistakes. And that's the problem. People think that we should be perfect, and that if somebody makes a mistake, then they're not as perfect as us. And that gives us a different leveling. We're at a different level somehow, when we have to realize we were at that level before. That's why I say, I express what I express the best I can. And I hope that the people out there listening will get that message and find a better way to express it. Because I know I'm shitty at it. Shit, I've only got 10 viewers. I don't know what the message is from these people that have these big, massive churches and how they're doing it. I really don't care, because I think that's all the money thing. And when I listen to those people, they really don't correlate those scriptures except for one little tiny piece, and they get you jostled up for the day and woo-ha and woo-ho, get you all excited. You really don't have any understanding and correlation with that scripture as it relates to other parts of the scripture. So when we think about the story of Job, the way he came about that was making sure that no tongue prospered against him. That's Isaiah 54. And in that, you see that he had several wives and all these things in his life that he was able to propagate because he stood by that standard and made sure that he was providing a good, solid message in everything he did, so that everything he did in life, it grew. And then the devil came and took it away, as if though that was going to change his mind about God. Well, if God's the one that gave it to him in the first place, and the devil came and took it away, I would suppose that God would provide it again. Even if the devil wanted to take it away again. That's the way I live my life. I don't care what you take from me. It was easy to get it to begin with. I'll get another one. You steal my bike, I'll get another one. You wreck my car, I'll get another one. I lose my job because you don't like me, I'll get another one. There's been nothing in my life that I feared losing. Even the people in my life. Granted, it was trauma, it was dramatic. But I've lost pretty much everybody in my life. I don't know if you really understand and comprehend the level of introspection that goes through your mind and spirit if you have to hold your little boy in your arms and try to breathe the breath of life back into his nostrils. And then you can't. I don't know if you know the turmoil that goes through a man's mind as he's sitting down at the river for 3 months trying to figure it out. Saying, fuck you, I don't care about you anymore. Giving up on that very source of life. I think deeply about other people. Because I know not only do I have an effect on them, but they have an effect on me. And I'd much rather have it a good effect, a positive effect. So, once again, I want to remind everybody, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Help a positive effect in people's lives. If you're on Hecklebus, El Perro, or Keith Little, get over to the other channel, do the same thing. Help with the algorithms. Do anything, every little bit you can to help. Even if it's just a good quick hello and a smile or something to somebody. Recognize them as a child of God, one that's able to receive the same message and spread that message. Don't worry about anything else. It's going to come just by being naturally a child of God. And with that, I want to thank everybody again for joining me tonight. I appreciate it. I do love you, but I don't give a fuck whether you love me back or not. So may God bless you. Have a good night, and we'll see you again next time. Bye now.